Hello, if you're new here, my name is Shellie, and if you like discussing all things conspiracy theories, true crime, serial killers, and also makeup, then welcome home, darling. You've come to the right place. I have to leave the room door open because my husband isn't here to watch the dogs in the next room. If you hear a lot of tippy tappies, it is my dogs being annoying on purpose because they know that I need them to be quiet while I'm filming. This series is entirely inspired by the Queen Balisarian, so you should definitely go check her out if you like this sort of thing. Today is day 6? Is it day 6 of my 13-day countdown to Halloween? Every year I do it here on YouTube. Today we're going to be talking about a man named Mikhail Popkov. I'm not sure quite how to pronounce it because he is Russian. I am not Russian. I am Oklahoma born and bred. I don't know why I did that. It's not a thing. This man earned the nickname the Werewolf, and when you find out why, it's pretty intense, so stay tuned for that. Really quick, if you haven't entered my giveaway over on Instagram, go ahead and enter. All you have to do is be following me on Instagram and then be subscribed to me here on YouTube, and then take a screenshot that you're subscribed, DM it to me on Instagram, and then you're entered. And then after that, you can get a bunch of bonus entries every time you share one of my Halloween makeup looks onto your story on Instagram. Then that's an extra entry. So you can get a lot of extra entries because I'm doing 31 days of makeup on there. I think that's all that I have to say. Let's go ahead and get into it. So Mikhail Popkov, I think that's how you say it. If I'm wrong, you can definitely correct me. I don't know if it's Mikhail or Mikhail, or I'm not sure. I'm sorry if I just botched his name throughout this whole video. But he was born March 7th of 1964. And there is not a lot that I could find about his childhood or anything, especially since it's all like Russian documents. Apparently his mother was very, very much an alcoholic. And some people say that she was super abusive. Now this is not like confirmed anywhere that she was abusive, but many people believe that she was. And a lot of people also believe that Mikhail suffered from fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, because a lot of people that have this disorder do not have a conscience. So a lot of people think that because his mother drank whenever she was pregnant, he developed this disorder, and then it led to him not having a conscience. And since she was abusive, it just kind of instilled a hatred for women in him growing up. Mikhail was not a loner or anything. He was definitely like a people person. He was well liked. He had a wife and a daughter, and his wife's name was Elena. I could be pronouncing their names wrong as well. Again, I'm so sorry. And his daughter was named Ekaterina. It's like Katerina but with an E at the beginning, so I don't know if it's like Ekaterina or Ekaterina. This is going so well. His wife and daughter absolutely adored him. His daughter still says that she is a daddy's girl. They both thought the world of him. Mikhail trained as a police officer, and he worked as one all the way up until 1998 when he resigned. Whenever he resigned as a police officer, he began working as a security guard at the Angarsk oil and chemical company, and Angarsk is where they lived and where he worked. Yeah, that's just like where this family lived. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. And then he worked for a private security agency. Like I said, this guy was super well liked. He was very charming. The people around him said that he was funny, he told good stories. He was just the guy on the job that you could have a casual conversation with and it would be fine. Like, you know, just that one coworker that everyone liked. He was that guy. And he had a beautiful family that adored him. It seemed like he had pretty much everything that a lot of people want. So Mikhail's wife also worked with the police. I don't think she was a police officer, Again, I haven't really gotten very many details about what she did, but she had a job that was like involved with the police a lot. And apparently the word on the street is that Elena, Mikhail's wife, cheated on him multiple times. And this broke Mikhail's heart. They didn't get separated because of it or anything, but it definitely tore him apart. And like I was telling you, he already had a hatred for women from how his mother was towards him, and now again in his mind he's just been treated terribly by another woman that he loves. So this causes him to just completely lash out against women one night. Mikhail was having a particularly bad day. I mean, you know, his wife had been cheating on him. I mean, like, everyone's stressed all the time. So whenever something like that happens, people can definitely break or snap or whatever. And I believe that's what happened, because Mikhail was just driving along in his police car because, you know, he was a policeman. He still had like the typical police car. And because he was a policeman, he was able to offer rides to women who were out like walking alone at night, or maybe a woman who was too intoxicated and someone could easily take advantage of her. Just one of those things where if he saw a woman walking along the road, mostly at night, he would offer to give her a ride home. And because he was in a police car and he seemed to be a police officer, the women would gladly get into his car. And one night, a poor woman gets into his car and then she is never heard from again. Later, when Mikhail was asked why he started killing, he said that it was completely spontaneous. And he literally said, "I just felt I wanted to kill a woman I was giving a lift to in my car." And that was it. So it was literally just him in his car giving a woman a lift, and then right there he just decided to kill her. And it was completely spontaneous. He didn't plan it out at all. So in his mind at this point, his view on women is just completely messed up. He thinks that any woman who is intoxicated, or any woman who is just walking alone at night, or any woman who would stop and talk to him, yeah, this is ridiculous, right? Any woman that would talk to him was useless or careless, and he believed he needed to clean the streets of these types of women. A lot of killers believe that like sex workers, people, the women who work alongside the road and stuff, they think that they're very dirty, and so they need to clean up the streets by killing them. And this guy thought that, but he thought that about pretty much any woman. I'm not saying the sex workers need to be cleaned up. I'm just saying that some people's logic is just completely not okay. So this is how Mikhail is viewing women at this point. So he would drive around and find any woman that had been drinking or was walking by herself or anything, and if they gave him the time of day to have a conversation, if they said yes when he offered them a lift in his car, then they were immediately, he thought that they were the type of woman to be unfaithful and to cheat, and that he needed to clean the streets of them. So after he picked her up, he drove her into the middle of the woods. Can you imagine how terrified these women would be? Like, you think that this police officer is taking you home, but then they like take a wrong turn and just take you not the right way, and then just like the building of the fear. I can't even imagine what these women went through. And it doesn't get any better either. So he took her out into the woods and he brutally beat her. And once his victim was unconscious or dead, then he would rape them. And this first murder was very messy from him, and it could almost be mistaken for an animal attack because of how like gruesome it was. But I mean, the police could tell that it wasn't an animal attack. I'm just saying, like, that's how bad it was. And after this first victim, Mikhail, because he's close to the police and at this time he's working as a policeman, he can tell how close the police are to figuring out who the murderer is in all of these cases. And in this first one, he can tell that the police have absolutely no clue that it's him. So this kind of encourages him to keep going. He had access to all of the confiscated weapons or miscellaneous items at the police station, so that's what he would use to murder the women. Every time it was something different. He did use an axe on 17 of the women, and he used a screwdriver on several of them. He would use knives and stab them, and he would strangle them. And before he did any of this, he would have them stripped naked. Not only was it violent, his way of killing, but it was also like he wanted to humiliate them before he killed them, and then he would rape them after they were unconscious or dead. You can just tell that he has a huge problem with women, and he probably should have went to therapy. So because he used confiscated materials from the police station, it would never be linked back to him. So the police really had no idea who this person was. And at first they nicknamed him the Wednesday Murderer because almost every time they found a body, it was on a Wednesday morning. So he would always wipe the weapon clean and then just kind of dispose of it. It was always somewhere close to the body. He didn't have to try too hard to hide everything. I mean, you have to remember at this point in time, this is whenever he was still a police officer before he resigned in 1998. They didn't have like DNA testing like we would now. So he was able to get away with a lot. On January 26th of 1998, a 15-year-old named Svetlana was offered a ride home by a police officer. And of course, she said yes because, I mean, we're supposed to be able to trust police officers. He ended up taking her into the woods. He made her take all of her clothes off, and then he smashed her head up against one of the trees. And she was only knocked unconscious. She wasn't killed by the impact, but I'm assuming that he thought that she had died because he just left her out there. And I mean, this is Russia, so it's like sub-zero degree temperatures, and she was out there all night, but she survived. She was found alive the next day, and she just remembered waking up in the hospital. The police didn't really pay too much attention to her, I guess how I would put it. Like, they questioned her and stuff, but they didn't really try, you know? And they only questioned her because her mother kept pushing them to, because she wanted to know who did this to her daughter. And whenever the police questioned her, she positively identified Officer MIKHAIL Popkov as her attacker and the policeman who picked her up. And all of the other policemen were like, there's no way, he's our buddy, he would never do that. So the police ended up sending her case to the archives. They already had a theory that it was a metal worker, a railway employee, a heating station engineer, or even a cemetery worker. So they already had this theory going, and they decided to lean more into their theory than believing Svetlana. And also, Mikhail's wife Elena gave him a really good alibi, and she said that she was with him all night, so there's no way it could be him. That was just another excuse that the police had not to believe Svetlana when she said that it was Mikhail. So police really didn't believe that they had any reason to think it was Mikhail doing all of this. But then one of the victims ended up having syphilis, and then later the police found out that Mikhail also had syphilis. It's just kind of a little head scratcher for them. They did not put it all together. They had all the facts right in front of them. They didn't do anything with it. An ex-police investigator named Nikolai Ketiev, I don't know how to pronounce it, but he said it was enough just to perform a DNA test of this man, but the police interrogated his wife, who composed an alibi for her husband. Later, he became more careful and carried on with his horrific crimes. So they questioned Mikhail about all of this at this point, but I mean, everyone just knew him as the charming guy that everyone liked, and his wife also provided him with a good alibi. So the police had, well, they had a reason, but the police just kind of overlooked the reason because they were like, there's no way it's him. There was a 20-year-old woman named Tanya. Her full name was Tatiana, but she went by Tanya. And she had a friend named Yulia. And they were given tickets to a concert by Tanya's sister Victoria, who owned a beauty salon. So she gave her sister these tickets, and of course Tanya's husband asked her not to go because, I mean, they had been finding women's bodies. He was not feeling okay about the situation at all. Then she told him that she would be going with her friend Yulia, and he felt a lot better that she would be going with a friend. So they went to this concert and the two girls had a good time. And then after the concert, they went to a bar to hang out and get a few drinks. You know, when you're out with your girlfriend, you know, you do these things. And as they were leaving, they were slightly intoxicated. Obviously, they were at a bar to drink, so, you know, it happens. And they were offered a ride home by a police officer named MIKHAIL Popkov. Now, the next morning, Igor got a hold of Victoria, and he told Victoria that Tanya never made it home that night. So then Victoria told him, like, don't stress too much about it. We will get a hold of Yulia's parents, and I'm sure that they probably went to a bar, and it's very possible that Tanya just stayed the night with Yulia. But whenever they contacted Yulia's parents, they said that they hadn't heard from the girls or seen them at all. And now at this time, no one has cell phones, so they have like no way to figure out where the girls were. So they went to the police and they filed a missing persons report. The police told them that a person has to be missing for 3 days before you file a report. So they sent them home. That night, a shepherd found them out by the side of the road nearby a village that was close to where they all lived, which was Angarsk. Sorry. So the police called Igor and Victoria because they had been there the day before asking to file a report on the girls. So the police contacted them, and while they were waiting to hear what the police had to say, Igor was like freaking out, having a full-on panic attack. Like, he was in shock, and he just kept saying she was killed over and over. And they were called into the station at like 1 a.m. The police wouldn't do that unless it was urgent. Igor is just like completely torn apart, and that's when they get the news that the bodies of her sister and her friend had been found. The girls had been chopped up and cut, and it was just really gruesome, and they had also been raped. Victoria and Tanya had an older brother named Oleg, and as soon as he heard, he immediately left Moscow and flew over there to identify the body, because Victoria and Igor just could not bring themselves to look in order to identify the body. And so Oleg flew in and he went and identified the body. You could just tell that it was horrible because he immediately got sick. And the body was just so messed up that Victoria just refused to look at it. Later on, Victoria was interviewed, and whenever she talks about it, she says that it made complete sense that it was a police officer, because she knew that her sister would not have gotten in the car with anyone unless it was a police officer or someone she knew. And at the girls' funeral, it seemed like the whole town came and the whole town showed up to support the families. Tanya's mother, her name was Lubor. I don't know how to pronounce that. L-U-B-O-R. She lost consciousness several times during the funeral, just because she, like, her body, she was just so distraught over her daughter's death and how her daughter died. She had to have a lot of medication to cope with what had happened, and the same thing with Igor. Luber felt that she had died when Tanya died, and she spent all of her money trying to talk to mediums and figure out who it was that killed her daughter. And sadly, she never found out because she died in 2007 at the age of 66 of a heart attack, which is just a few years before Mikhail was caught. Years later, after Mikhail had been caught, Victoria saw a picture of him in the newspaper and she knew she recognized him from somewhere. And she realized that they were both involved in a biathlon at the same sports center, and she knew him, like, casually. She said that, like, the emotions just overtook her. She took a knife and just cut up his picture in the newspaper, because I mean, I feel like it's pretty understandable. She said, "This beast took the life of my sister who had so many happy years ahead of her." Now, August 12th of 1999, a woman's body was found and it had been beheaded. The body had 6 knife wounds and it was found in a dumpster. And then later they found the head, which was in another dumpster in a whole different district. They identified the body as the body of a medical student. A few days after that, on August 17th, a woman named Maria, who worked at a water pumping station, went missing, and she was later found in the woods. And I mean, it was very gruesome as well. 2 girls named Marina and Lilia worked at the same shop, and they were going to visit Marina's sister because, I mean, they were all friends. And they ended up leaving Marina's sister's house at about midnight that night, and I believe they also, like, were roommates. And they were roommates. Sorry, this is serious. But it was a nice summer night, and these ladies were gonna call a taxi, but then they decided to walk home because, I mean, it was just a really nice summer evening. Then all of a sudden, a police car pulls up next to them while they were walking, and he offers to drive them home. And they both get in the car. If they decided to walk, I'm not sure why they agreed to get a ride. I don't know, maybe just because it was free or something. I'm not totally sure. Their bodies were discovered near a village that was close to the name of the town that I can't pronounce. Now, the Russian tradition then for a funeral was you would normally have an open casket, but many of the victims were not able to have an open casket funeral because of how violent and brutal their murders were. So the police were just about done with not having any leads or anything. So they decided to go back into the cases and try to figure out what linked them to each other, and then hopefully they would be able to figure out who the killer was that way. And when they did this, they realized that at every crime scene there were the same tire marks. And these specific tire marks were the marks of a Lada 4x4, which was an off-road vehicle used by law enforcement. This led the police to do DNA testing on 3,500 officers in the Irkutsk area. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. So in the year 2012, they tested former officers and current officers of everyone in that area. And lo and behold, Mikhail's DNA was 100% match to DNA found at the crime scenes. And on June 23rd of 2012, Mikhail was arrested. Mikhail was charged and sentenced to life in prison October 31st of 2013. And he kept admitting to murders. So then later in January of 2015, he was charged with 22 murders and 2 attempted murders. He told police that he honestly never thought that they would catch on and figure out that it was him, and he just like never expected DNA testing. DNA testing was like just starting out towards the end of the murders, so they weren't able to use it at first, but then I'm glad that they finally got around to using it. While he was in prison, he kept like adding more murders on top of what he was already charged for, but eventually the police were just like, this is just a ruse to keep us from putting him in prison, because while they were like investigating what he was admitting to, he had to be held in like a different facility until they proved that he was guilty for these certain things. So then eventually they were just like, you know what, we'll just put you in prison for life, you know, and then you'll just sit there. And he admitted to 81 total murders, but not all of them have been confirmed, but the police are pretty sure that all of them were because of him, just because of like, he knew where bodies were that they hadn't found yet, and he was able to show the police exactly where the bodies were, and he was able to describe every single wound and what he used. Mikhail was interviewed for a TV show, and during the interview he was super happy and smiling the whole time, and this made everyone infuriated. Furious? Furiated? I don't think furiated is a word. I think I'm trying to say furious. This made everyone furious because when he was on the TV show, he was laughing and smiling the entire time, and it was really creepy. He had absolutely no remorse for what he did. The people were so upset about it that they asked Putin? I don't know how to say that. They wanted him to have the death penalty, like execution style. Everyone was like, we gotta go back to the old days where we just shot people in the head close range. Like, that is literally what the people were asking for. Now, his wife and daughter moved away, and his daughter became a school teacher, but they were never 100% convinced that he did anything, because his daughter said that he never came home with any blood or any bruises or any type of evidence that he had been involved in the things that they were saying that he was involved in. But Mikhail talked about having a double life after he had been arrested. He said, and I quote, "One life I was an ordinary person. In my other life I committed murders which I carefully concealed from everyone, realizing that this was a criminal offense." What do you guys think? Are you guys on the mom and daughter side? Which I don't know if the mother or his wife kept giving him alibis because she felt bad because of all the times that she cheated on him. What do you guys think? I will leave you with a quote from MIKHAIL Zoverin, who was an investigator. And he said, "He is charming and sociable. Women like him, but he is a beast inside. And it is always hard to fight a werewolf." So my camera died and I cannot get it to come back fast enough for me. I'm very impatient. But I wanted to tell you guys really quick that I can't believe I left this part out, because this is like the craziest part to me. Apparently he ripped the heart out of one of the victims, and a lot of people were convinced that he was a cannibal and that he was also eating parts of his victims, and that the reason why it was so gruesome because he was trying to hide the fact that he was eating parts of the victim. Can't believe I left that part out. It's pretty important. Anyways, back to the video. So that is how he got the nickname of the werewolf, and I hope that by me doing a werewolf look doesn't seem like I'm like mocking the situation, which I am not at all. This is just, you know, Halloween season, so I was trying to find cases that related to things that I could do Halloween makeup looks over. Okay, that is it for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope to see you back tomorrow. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up because I like it when you like it, and also hit the button down below. Subscribe, become a part of the tribe. We are a group of people who like to look beautiful and talk about things that can get really ugly. If you like that type of thing, then definitely stick around. Don't forget to follow me on all my social medias. It is just Shellie GMUA on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I almost said Tumblr again. What is with me and Tumblr? So yeah, definitely if you want to see makeup looks without having to hear me talk, then I suggest you go to Instagram for that. I hope that you are enjoying this series so far. I will see you guys tomorrow. Stay spooky. God bless. Love you. Bye.